episode of Business Meets Life. And today we have, from a new part of the world, we have Csaba Toth with us. He's originally from Hungary, but joining us from the UK today. Csaba, where are your pets right now? I only see yourself. Where are the birds?
Thank you so much for having me. The birds are in the other room because otherwise they would be too active and they want to be in the spotlight, and I'm not sure that would be useful.
I see. Okay, so for our new listeners, if they don't know you yet, tell us a little bit of who is the real Jaba, because you have a lot of great topics to and stories to tell.
I think this is one of the most evil and fulfilling questions that somebody can ask, because this is not something that usually we think about. Who are you without your title, without your nationality, without what you do? And it's difficult. To be honest, I think I'm still that Hungarian boy from that village who went through a lot of things, who got frustrated, who wanted to find a solution, who wanted to understand why something happened. I don't know if I did, but that is still part of the mission.
Now, you were just saying mission, and I know that you have actually founded a couple of different companies. Can you quickly walk us through the different companies and in the different countries and where you are now?
At the moment, I'm in Brighton in the UK. So if you go to London, you go straight to the beach, and when you splash, that's Brighton, straight down. And I've been here for 20 years now. So in Hungary, I studied Italian linguistics, then because I didn't know what to do. And then as soon as I finished, I came to the UK for a summer. That was, a generations ago. And I studied international management after that, specialized in Eastern and Western European joint ventures. That's where I kind of discovered the topic. And as soon as I finished, I started my own company, which was a restaurant booking site. You book a table and then we get the money. But it was much more exciting that. And we started with 35 restaurants here in Brighton. In 1 year, we had 5,500 all over the UK. And it turned into a joint venture and the fastest growing restaurant booking site in the UK. On paper, yes, on paper it's wow, but in real life it wasn't behind the scenes. And that was the problem, that on paper everything made sense. In real life, I couldn't get along with the other CEO, who was French. I'm not saying that was the problem, but definitely we got to the point where we had to get out of the business. We sold the shares. The business is still online, but we are not part of it anymore. And this is when I started my research, because that didn't make sense at all. How come that was the exact topic of my dissertation? Eastern and Western European joint ventures.
Yeah.
The department where I studied is #1 in the world in its category. I had years of experience. How come I couldn't put that theory into practice? It didn't make sense. And because I'm quite stubborn, then I started my research and I wanted to figure it out. And I think probably I did. It turned out that lots of people have the same problem. And that's how I started my current business.
Ah, interesting. That would have been one of my questions, because ICQ Global, or especially also like the DISC tool. I mean, luckily I'm one of your certified coaches, consultants now, DISC certified. Thank you for this amazing tool. It's a game changer. But I know that it has already been existing with other people, other organizations. And you just could have said like, okay, it's already existing. Like, how did you make it better, or why did you still want to like focus on that specific tool or methodology instead of just using what somebody else has already created?
I don't think I made it better. I think I made it complete. And the reason is that when it comes to people, there are two main approaches. One is the psychometric field, and they deep dive into your soul and your behavior and all those things, which is really interesting. And on the other side, you have the intercultural models, which are technically international models, because they talk about countries, and we know based on research that the poorest container of culture is country of origin, gender, and generation. Meaning that based on these categories, you cannot predict an individual's values and beliefs. That has nothing to do with science. They are useful when you move to a country and you learn about what people are used to. But if your success depends on how well you understand an individual, it can be truly misleading, because more than 80% of cultural differences exist within countries, not between them. And this is the key, that I'm always interested in going back to the origins. And, DISC is not new, like you said, but the idea has been around for 2,500 years. Starting with Hippocrates and the four temperaments, and he introduced some bodily fluids, which are quite revolting. But the point is that, hundreds of different researchers came to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
We are all a combination of the four personality types. And
Mm.
then when William Marston created his model, he didn't protect it. So a lot of companies created their own versions, which are pretty much 90% the same.
I see.
But there is something missing from it. And this is what I had to realize. That
What
yes,
was
maybe
missing?
we are all a combination
Hmm.
of the four types, but it doesn't mean that we behave the same way. Because you and me could have an identical global disc profile, but you faced very different challenges than me. You found different best practices to meet your needs and express your values. And when you grew up, how much could you be yourself? That's important as well. Your personality determines how you want to behave, but your environment or culture determines how you have to behave. You cannot separate them. So global disc adds the missing 50%, the cultural intelligence part, understanding the power of the environment.
Mm.
Otherwise, it doesn't make sense because you can put different people in a team and most of them are going to conform to certain norms. So you're not going to see those differences.
Yeah, that's really good to know. So when I started my career in China 6 years ago, the first certification I did was a career advisor, and the main part was MBTI, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. Now, for everybody here who is still using MBTI, and here in China, I can see it's so huge. Whether it's at university or it's with companies, it's all about MBTI. I feel like not many people use Global Disc yet. What is the difference, and why would you say nowadays we as trainers, coaches, or leaders should rather use the Global Disc methodology instead of MBTI?
One thing is, for example, I don't know if you read Adam Grant's, the organizational psychologist article about MBTI, that more than 50% of the people who take the assessment a month later get completely different results. So that means that the world is full of really strange people or something is wrong. And it's interesting that people are craving a label. And it's nice to see that, yes, this is my type. But that's exactly the problem with MBTI and other psychometric assessments, that they use these labels and they say, you are red, I'm blue. Case closed. Fantastic. So did we contribute to the solution? No. And often it turns into this kind of glorified fixed mindset. This is who I am and you have to accept me and that's your label. So this is who you are. No, global disc is about understanding who you are inside, your preferences. So we
Mm.
can work on your comfort zone, on your behavioral flexibility. So we don't use it as an excuse, but we can escape our personality trap. Not
Yeah.
because one is better than the other one, but the best one is the most flexible one. It's like speaking different languages. And that's the most important part.
Mm. Wow, thank you so much. Now, beyond this, I know that you have developed a couple of other assessments, and soon you also have a really cool training coming up again, which I still plan to do this time or next time to join. Tell us a bit more about the Growth Zone 2.0 and why you have come up with this, or what's a game changer?
So if you look at global disc, it talks about cognitive diversity, which is the immune system of teams, the invisible layer, the one that has proven benefit in terms of performance, the way people think and process information. But you also have to create the right environment, and that is high psychological safety and high motivation. That's where the magic happens. Otherwise, you can put really smart people in a team, but statistically, 79% of potential is lost because they clash. And
Hmm.
the top three reasons: clash of values, clash of personalities, and poor leadership. And they all go back to the same source: the lack of understanding of why people think and behave differently. So you have to create the right environment. Because if you don't have that, it's like, trying to swim in an empty swimming pool. You
Yeah.
can think about it, but it's not the right environment. So growth zone is about measuring, visualizing, and optimizing psychological safety and motivational drivers. Because a lot of people talk about it. There's lots of, don't know if it's virtual signaling or marketing, but most of them cannot actually offer a solution. And if you cannot measure something, how can you optimize it?
Exactly.
That doesn't make sense. It's not helping anyone. It just highlights the gap between your workplace should be like this, but that's how you feel. Great. What did you achieve? people became more disengaged because there's no solution. And that's the problem with that. So we can turn these gut feelings into visible insights to create meaningful conversations. And often that's the problem, that people cannot talk about something they are not aware of. How do you talk about something if you don't have the vocabulary, a frame of reference, and the data? You can discuss the symptoms with people like you, people who are similar to you. That's homophilic diversity, but that's not very useful. So this is something that we would like to have.
Wow, you've mentioned so many interesting points where I feel like a lot of the leaders I'm working with, they are not too deep into it. So you spoke about psychological safety, clash of values, lack of understanding. I mean, that is obvious, especially also in multinational teams. Create the right environment where also company culture comes in, motivational drivers. What exactly is psychological safety? Because I feel like that I remember it was here in Shanghai, it was only like about 1, 2, maybe 2 years ago, where we started to have like a series of different public events to talk about psychological safety. And even I, as a coach and trainer before that, a couple of years ago, I didn't know what it means. What is psychological safety, or how can leaders or companies make sure that they are high on psychological safety in their workplaces?
I think we can start the definition by defining what is not psychological safety, and that is not physical comfort. Because when you have the wrong definition, it creates the wrong expectations. And a lot of people think that psychological safety is physical comfort. Now, the issue with that is that next time you feel uncomfortable, you think it's not safe. And that's not true. That's the problem with that. They might think that it's a synonym for trust. No, there is an overlap, but trust is between you and me. Psychological safety exists on a team level. So that is the feeling that if you make a mistake, if you have a weird idea, if you want to contradict or give a feedback, then nobody's going to hold it against you. They're not going to punish you for it.
Yeah.
Because often we have an idea, you have that knowledge in your team, but somehow people don't speak up. Why? Because they don't feel safe. What if you humiliate me? What if you laugh at me? What if you punish me? What if I'm hurting somebody's ego? Because they want to be right instead of getting things right. And that's why it's interesting to see that when you look at cognitive diversity, the higher it is, the lower psychological safety is, at least in the beginning. Because people feel weird that, well, you contradicted, you react differently to what I expect. And the brain doesn't like that.
And can psychological safety then, you mentioned this is more between teams, this is not about trust, but is psychological safety also a topic in like personal relationships between two people? Or this is all about trust?
So the main difference is that if we have trust between you and me, then if you make a mistake, then I give you the benefit of doubt because I know that it wasn't intentional. Psychological safety is on a team level. So if I make a mistake, I know that they are going to give me the benefit of doubt. Nobody's going to accuse me. Nobody's going to punish me. So there is an overlap. And yes, it can exist in a relationship as well.
Now, let's go back to your first venture, which of course was very successful, but you had a couple of challenges. If you could do it all over again, whether it's your first business or the second one, I mean, now you also have different tools, different knowledge. Because we have listeners here who are serial entrepreneurs and leaders, like, what would you do differently?
I don't know if I wanted to do that, to be honest. Because looking back at it now, you always get the yellow signs in your life. And you can choose to ignore them. And then at one point, the life is going to give you a slap and then enough, wake up. So I think this is exactly what happened to me. Because it's not all about, the technical knowledge. I thought that having a lot of qualifications, common sense, and good intention would be enough to become successful. And that is not true. At the end of the day, it's down to people. How much you understand yourself and how much you understand other people. So the idea was good, the restaurant booking site. Because one night I was sitting in the kitchen on the floor reading the Dragon's Den book. And I thought, I wanted to eat mussels. Where can I find mussels? Weird question, at midnight. But I didn't know the answer to that. And I said, how come you cannot search for menu items in restaurants? great idea. So I'll build the website. But then it turned out that if they run out of the food and then they don't update the menu, then the whole idea is wrong. So we had to pivot, and it turned into a marketing site. So we were selling different booking solutions and a lot of IT solutions for the restaurants to make life easier for them. But at the end of the day, it was boring. I mean, I could talk to them because that's my background, but it was a boring business model for me.
Okay.
And I just didn't enjoy it. So I think everything happens for a reason. And now, even though that was a horrible, horrible experience, that is my best case study. That was the catalyst that started everything. And sometimes entrepreneurs think that I failed in business. No, that project failed. But then this is where the coach comes into the picture, and you can say, it really failed? Did you quit or you let it go? It's not the same thing. Because letting go is intentional. It's a smart thing to do. Quitting is weakness. So that can turn into your best case study. And I think that helps entrepreneurs, because your first business is probably not going to be the last one or the best one.
Yeah, I love what you just said. Everything happens for a reason. I think every one of us can resonate with this. It looks horrible in that moment when it's happening, but there is a bigger purpose behind it and tons of learning. So let's try not to make the mistake again. I've recently started taking some Mind Valley courses, and I've also started to practice intuition, listening more to my intuition. And if you look at a couple of books, like some of them, some of the best management decisions were according to like rational decisions. You need your data, as you said, that you can have the meaningful conversations, as you mentioned earlier, and make some changes, right? So this is the rational part of us. Now, but then there's also like the gut feeling, the intuition. Let's talk about intuition. I'd love to have your opinion on, do you always make rational decisions? What's your connection to gut feeling, to intuition? Because you mentioned that earlier. And yeah.
I think I learned how to suppress it pretty well, and it cost me a lot. So it's time to get into it again. Because often you feel that something is wrong, but you try to find an excuse. Sometimes for yourself, sometimes for other people's behavior. And you fail to notice the pattern. And this is where the biases are so important. Confirmation bias. Is it a rational decision? Unlikely. We just find the supporting information and, oh yeah, it is rational now. Because, your mind is like Google. You find what you're looking for. And that's the key. So it is something that I should be working on, definitely, because I learned how to suppress it, and probably that was a big mistake.
It's interesting that we're saying this now, because I also made a couple of mistakes recently where I knew that I underpressed, or I didn't listen to the gut feeling, to the intuition. And if we look at some of the most successful people out there, including Steve Jobs, Napoleon Hill, it seems like they all trained themselves to be closer connected to intuition, which doesn't mean we shall not use like the wonderful tools that you have created, right? We really need them, especially on a company level. But I feel like it looks like some of the most successful leaders and business owners out there, they are connected to their intuition. They get different ideas and guided. Plus, I mean, of course, also like the data. Let's go back to the next question. I mean, Growth Zone 2.0, psychological safety, motivational drivers. What would be the advice you would like to give leaders? Like from your own experience and from the amazing tools that you have created, that we all can use it nowadays, run our teams, increase engagement, and to get them to be happy and also like successful. Like, what are all the different tips you would give us leaders and company owners now on how to be
A
good
couple of
leaders?
things. First of all, I think most of the investment goes to the senior leaders. But if you look at the Gallup research, the bottom 5%, so technically the most disengaged layer of a company is middle management. And they are leading 70% of the workforce. They are the ones who should implement the well-being programs. They should motivate people. They should create a psychologically safe environment. No, they are burning out. Not because they are not good enough, it's because they don't get the support that they need.
Yeah.
Because often the best employees are promoted to be a manager, which is a completely different role, and they don't get the support. So would it make more sense to help them more so they are less damaged by the time they get to the top? To me, that's the most important part, because they stress out the employees. And I want to work with companies who are committed to creating that kind of environment where people feel safe and motivated instead of stressed and anxious at work. And let's be honest, ultimately at home, because you take it home.
Yeah.
And I used to be a very disengaged employee, and I did really nasty things, and I'm not proud of it. But I didn't know what was happening to me. I was just angry. And when we look at, for example, the leadership development field, you can Google it, which is the best people development solution. And then in less than a second, you get more than 3 billion results. You
Yeah.
click on any of them, and they would claim mine is the best one.
Of course.
Fantastic. Lots of
How do you make
confidence.
the decision?
But if you look at the employee engagement scores, they've been declining for 5 years. Now they are back to the level where they were 10 years ago. So clearly, there's a disconnect there. Something doesn't add up. Companies saving a fortune. They're spending a lot of money on trying to save their future, but they're risking it because they invest in outdated and incomplete solutions. How can you have a leadership development program without measuring your impact as a leader on the people who matter the most, your team?
Yeah.
You can teach leaders inclusive behaviors and whatever you want, but does it really work? I don't know, but you can measure it. Because if it doesn't work, if you cannot create the right environment, you're not a good leader. That's it.
Yeah.
And that money is lost.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with that. So to me, it's a more holistic approach. You're not a leader if nobody is following you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But how do you do that?
So who would really, like, if you have to summarize it again, who should definitely join one of your upcoming trainings now, the Growth Zone 2.0? Because you and I were both about making an impact in this world, right? And within companies and for people.
So there are two types of people who could apply. First, coaches and consultants and trainers who want to create a scalable business
Mm-hmm.
and a meaningful legacy. And then also in-house L&D or HR professionals, entrepreneurs or leaders who want to create the right environment for the company, where differences can be turned into synergy instead of painful liability, because virtue signaling is not going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Because talking about psychological safety is not going to create it. We
Yeah.
need more than that, but there is a blueprint, and that's the beauty of it.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I feel like excited. I should actually click on it and sign up right now. Now, I would like to open a new topic now. I have seen that you have recently gotten, or you, for a longer time, you're already owning the badge on LinkedIn, Top Voice in Leadership Development. And I would like to know from you, like, how can people get that? Or what does it mean about who you are and how LinkedIn sees you?
I think that is by invitation. Then you have to just answer a few questions, and depending on how many people interact with you and what you say and how often you post, ultimately you get it. Because I think I've seen quite a few people who have like 10 or 11 or 12 different, top voice. I thought, that's a bit greedy. What I want is to be the best at what I do,
Mm-hmm.
not good at everything I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's really important. So going deeper instead of going wider.
Mm-hmm. I like that. You're definitely a specialist here. And we can also see that you, like on prestigious Forbes, you're actually part of the coaching council. How did you make that happen? I mean, for some of the coaches and trainers and consultants who are listening here, I guess it would be a goal for them as well.
So that is invitation only, and then you have an interview, and if you pass it, then you get it. But
Mhm.
usually it's based on how successful you are and also your voice. Because if you look at, for example, LinkedIn, a lot of people are against something,
Mhm.
which is easy. Less people are for something. And real leaders stand for something so people can get behind them.
Mm.
And if you want to take it to the next level, it's not just that you stand for something, but you also offer a solution. You're actively working on a solution to making it better. And that's the key to me, because talking is not enough. Being a practitioner, I think there's a huge gap in the market.
Definitely, yeah. Talking is not enough. It's all about putting in some practice and being a role model. Now, we can already see how much you have achieved, and I have felt myself the impact that you have made with the tools. And what's coming next? I mean, like, first question is like, what is your life purpose? And then I'd love to know, like, what's coming next? Do you have some specific 5-year plan with some goals, or what else is there?
I mean, next month we are launching the ICQ Global Academy, which is about the solutions created and designed and delivered by our partners, the active partners, based on our solutions. And that's important, because I want to champion them. I want to show people that, look, even though we use the same framework, we make it special with our background, because that makes us credible, our experience. And if you combine that with the most up-to-date and complete tools, then magic happens. So that is important. I do the webinars every single month, so people can ask better questions, so they can make better decisions, because our field is full of lots of outdated ideas, and that can cause more harm than good. And sometimes people mistake familiarity and popularity with efficiency. And that can be dangerous, because they pay for it twice, first in cash and the second time in lost opportunities. And a lot of people want to tell others what to think. They want to play this, I'm the guru, I'm a thought leader, sit down,
Yeah.
No, it's about making people think, adding value. And to be honest, this is part of the legacy, because the last few years, a lot of difficult things happened. So technically, I lost my parents, my grandparents, and we have no kids. So technically, 3 generations are missing. It's a very different way of thinking. And my legacy is the difference that we are making. And our partners know the expression that we are building an empire, but we are doing it the right way, because you cannot do it alone. You can only do it with the right people. The more successful they are, the more successful we all are.
Yeah.
And I want to create synergy, thinking long term. And that is the legacy, because I can see that, imagine if we could learn about these things at school, it would be a whole new world. And that's why we work with universities, 16 or 18 universities. And to me, that's an investment in a better future, because hopefully they're going to make better decisions than us. And I lost really important people, and I hurt a lot of people while thinking I was doing the right thing. And that's horrible. You make a mistake, who cares? You get over it. But if you realize that you're hurting other people, believing that you're doing it for them, that's bad. It's nobody's fault. But once you have that awareness, you realize that it could have been avoided, but you just didn't speak the same language. Doesn't matter how hard you try, you just don't connect. That's horrible. To me, that is the personal drive.
I'm glad that you're saying this right now with the hurting, because just now from the words you said and the comparisons again, I think I've just recently been through this and hurt somebody because of several reasons of what you have just mentioned. And I never had the intention, but suddenly it just happened. And all that I've just realized now is I can just learn from it. I can make sure I'm never going to do something like this. And I have a list of things that I have learned and how I can become better and as a person, right? And how by me making this mistake, I can also help other people to avoid that mistake. So thank you for opening up and sharing this with us as well about your family. So
I think that's the most important part. And this is what we said in the very beginning as well, that it's about creating the right environment where people feel safe and motivated at work, but also at home. Because when the parents are stressed out, the kids are going to feel it. They're
yes,
not going to have quality time. And that's unfair. And they don't even know what's happening. They don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to make it better.
yeah,
And that's horrible.
absolutely. Yeah. Now, in my eyes, Chaba, you're extremely successful. I really love the mission you are on and what you have already achieved and given to the people. Being part of your ICQ global community, I really have to say we learn from each other, we support each other. There's no jealousy. And being a female entrepreneur, I often see that women with women are very often not supportive at all. So thank you that you have created this beautiful community where people support each other beyond. Now, what do you think is your key to success? What maybe made you more successful than other people that we can learn from you? I don't know if this is about routines or habits or way of thinking. I'm not sure.
If I had to choose one principle, then it would be outmatching. I
Out.
don't know if it's a word, but when I read
Mhm.
Adam Grant's book, and he said that on the top and the bottom of the most successful people are the givers, and in the middle, the takers. And I
Mhm.
want to see myself as somebody who outmatches. So whoever worked with me, they know, I really believe they do, that they always get more than what they pay for, what they expect. If somebody puts the effort into a project that we do together as a licensed partner or as a client, I always want to give more than expected. But the other side of that is that if somebody is unfair, the same thing happens. And so far it worked. And sometimes it takes a bit longer,
Mhm.
because we try to be patient and you don't want to punish the next people because of the sins of the previous ones,
Mhm.
because that would be unfair. So it takes a bit of time, but I think people can feel it, the right people. Some people try to take advantage of that, then they meet a different side of me. And that is it. Outmatching, give more than expected.
Outmatching, give more than expected. I really love that. I mean, from my own experience, I got trained by one of your trainers in your community, by Gabor, and then later on, you reached out and you were giving me, first of all, your time. We had a one-on-one conversation to get to know each other. You gave me more material that I can make an impact in my clients' world. You welcome me to your community. Now you're on my podcast, taking the time, which is really amazing. So thank you for that. I see a beautiful book right next to you, Uncommon Sense in Unusual Times. Tell us a bit about your book. What is it about?
So that was published in 2020,
Mhm.
and just before the pandemic or when it started. And it's not exactly about global this, but it's more about the research behind it. It's more about the philosophy, why it exists and how it can help people, and why is it important to understand the blueprint of why people think and behave differently.
Mhm.
Because often a lot of courses are about teaching you how to deal with other people, but how do you manage other people before you know how you lead yourself? And often that's the missing part. That is the foundation. How can you be inclusive towards others if you cannot even accept yourself?
Mhm.
And to me, that's the foundation. So the book is about giving people that blueprint. And it's also a hybrid book, meaning that you can read a chapter and then you can experience it. So there is a self-paced course, online course
Oh,
attached to it.
interesting. Yeah, I still need to get your book here. Now, how do you, when you face adversity, how do you make sure you get up fast again? How do you deal with it?
Is there another option?
I mean, you could
I
give
mean,
up, right? You could become an alcoholic, be depressed, throw away your life. There is an option, several options, right?
true, they're not good ones, but yes. I mean, for example, one Saturday morning, I got the call that my father passed away. That day, I delivered the workshop. To me, it's obvious. You just carry on, and I think that's our responsibility, not just as humans, but also as entrepreneurs, that we keep going, because we're really good at knowing why we do something, what we want, but often the how is not up to us.
Mm.
Sometimes we get to that destination in a really weird and unexpected way, but it is our responsibility to carry on. And
Mhm.
especially if it's not just about you,
Yeah.
but other people around you.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I'm the next in line now. So I'm the eldest member of our family. So now we have one goal to extend this branch of the family tree as much as we can. That is it. So there's no other option. We have to make the most of it. So the time was not wasted. And then, we can make them proud. And hopefully they see that.
That's beautiful. I really wish you all the best for that one. And I have one last question for you before we're wrapping it up here. And again, I'm very grateful that you also open up to us and you show us vulnerability and how you deal with these challenging times, because we all have to go through these. Um, I think like you, I am a giver. And when I moved to China 6.5 years ago, in the beginning, I was like, because I started my own Monday morning motivation community, it was growing. More people would reach out to me, would ask you for help, advice, get me in WeChat groups, or connect me with this or this person, or speak in English with me, or like lots of different requests, right? And because like I was raised by my parents to always be helpful and be supportive. It's one of my core values. But I realized at one point, and also like you, I have a bigger community. We're growing on social media and we want to be personal, supportive, and give and support. Where do you draw the line? Or how do you recognize if this person is worth giving or not? Because a lot of successful people, they love to give and invest in potentials and talents and pay it forward, right? But how do you know if this person is worth it or not? Or where to draw a line to say no, or to give to everybody? Because at one point it's just too much and you also have to take care of yourself.
This is where outmatching is really important, because outmatching is not about giving. That also implies that it's mutual. So, for example, let's use our partners,
Mhm.
licensed partners. Everybody starts on the partner level, which is mutual. So, of course, I want to put all the value into everything. So I'm not going to see, are you worth it or not? Yeah, part of it, so of course you are. But then, based on the interaction, if it's really one-sided, somebody just wants to take, but there's nothing comes back, not just to us, but the community,
Mhm.
off they go. Because it's not automatic. It's something that we have to earn on both sides. So that's why I also created the inner circle within the partners. Those are the active people who are committed to growth and contribution. So to me, maybe it sounds a bit strange, but there are three categories. Everybody starts there, partner. Then the second level is punters, like clients. You get what you pay for. If you don't want to be a partner, because maybe somebody just doesn't want to be, that's okay. They can be a client. That's no problem with that. But if
Mhm.
somebody is taking advantage in a really nasty way, that goes to the third category, the third P, which is pest. And that's how they treat it. But everybody starts at the top. So I'm not going to make that judgment. Are you worth it?
Mhm.
No, everybody is worth it in the beginning. And
Mhm.
depending on the quality of the interaction, we'll see. It doesn't have to be 50-50. That's not the whole point. Not at all. And it's not even about the money. It doesn't cost anything to like a post, to share something, to say
Yeah.
something. And that's the reason why I was so happy that now I can be here with you, because you are a practitioner. You don't just talk about things, you get things done. You put the work into it. Your integrity doesn't depend on your level of discomfort. You promise it, you do it. And that's a real partner. That's a real practitioner. And that is something that I value more than anything in the world.
Thank you so much for taking the time for having this conversation with us. And for all of our listeners here, I hope, as usual, you took some notes like I did. And please, if you like today's session, share it with your friends, send it to your colleagues. Check out Jaba's amazing growth zone 2.0 training coming up in February, and also follow him on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your time, Jaba. We stay connected, and I wish you all the best.